Balder, Krampus thought, then said it aloud. Balder, that's his true name. Santa Claus? Jesse asked. Yes, his true name is Balder. There, it is said. After 500 years, his name again touches my tongue. He scowled, hating the bitter taste of the word. Vernon, bring me the mead. Vernon hopped up, brought over the flask. Krampus drank deep, trying to wash away the bitterness. My grandfather Loki killed him once, long ago. Now I shall do it again. He clutched the velvet sack. So tragic, Balder's death. Fair and beautiful Balder. Beloved by all, Krampus sneered, or so it is told, as I knew him not before his death. I learned of those events from my mother, Hale, queen of the netherworld. She would tell his tale and so many others as I sat as a child upon the steps of her throne, her sweet words accompanied by the woeful singing of the dead. What's not to love about that? Krampus squinted at Jesse. You're being sarcastic. Nah. Krampus gave Jesse a disdainful look, but continued. She spoke that all in Asgard loved Balder, the second son of Odin. All praised Balder, so fair of feature and so bright that light shone from him, fair-spoken and gracious. She told that they spoke of his charitable nature, his benevolence toward the downtrodden, going on and on about this gentle champion of the woeful and dispirited until one wished to hang oneself. But there was one not taken in by Balder's charm and beauty, Loki. But there was one not taken in by Balder's charm and beauty. Loki, being the king of all tricksters, was quick to recognize deceit no matter how fair the package. He saw Balder for the fraud he was and took it as a challenge to expose him before all, especially Odin, as there was no love between the two, and the opportunity to bring disgrace and shame to the house of Odin was too great a temptation to resist. His chance came when Balder schemed to become more than a deity, but to have life and beauty everlasting. And to this means he spun a tale to play on his parents' great love. He told his father and his mother, Frigg, of his recurring nightmares, dreams that spoke of an impending death, of his impending death. His parents, not able to stand the thought of harm befalling their most beloved son, fell into Balder's design. They traveled the 9 worlds, sought and received an oath from everything in creation not to harm Balder, although all that is, but from a young, distant plant called mistletoe. As Odin all that is, but from a young, distant plant called mistletoe. As Odin felt this weed to be too lowly and feeble to matter, and thus Balder gained his immortality. Krampus snorted. That is how the myths spin it anyway. But myths are full of flowering fancy, and as much as I adore such tales, Hale told me the truth. Odin, being the great sorcerer that he was, concocted a spell and placed it upon Balder, a spell that prevented any element of the 9 worlds from ever harming him. Only the spell was contrived from the poison of mistletoe, and thus mistletoe remained immune. Once Balder had this wondrous gift, he did not wait to show it off, encouraging all comers to amuse themselves by trying to harm him with weapon of their choosing. Mother told that he made great sport of it, reveling in the attention, that the other gods loved the game, and as Balder's popularity grew, so did Loki's determination to expose him. Loki disguised himself as an old woman and tricked Frigg into revealing the secret of the mistletoe. Armed with this knowledge, Loki sought out the plant and made from it an arrow, an alchemy of mistletoe and ore. Loki took this arrow, and the next time he found Balder at the play, he slipped in amongst the gathering crowd. There he found Balder's blind brother Hur. He asked Hur why he did not participate. Hur replied that this is no game for a blind man. Loki presented Hur with a bow and the charmed arrow, offered to guide his hand. Hor was thrilled to have a chance to play and pulled the bow with great vigor. The arrow hit Balder in the chest, drove deep into his heart, and Balder fell down dead right there before Frigg, before Odin. It is said that the silence was deafening. Poor Hor could not see their fearsome gazes, and Loki could not bear it. Loki fled. Odin's grief was bottomless, and he had Hor slain for the deed. Krampus shook his head. I've always felt for Hor. A pawn in a game of jealousy and spite, he carried the torment of killing his own beloved brother, then to be slain by his own father. Tragic indeed. Odin laid Balder's body to rest upon the great ship Hringhorni, and then set it ablaze. It is said that Balder's wife, Nanna, in her grief, threw herself into the flame to follow him into death. Krampus took another swig, but this is just the beginning, for Balder's spirit fell into Hel. Maybe it's Hel, H-E-L, into the realm of the dead, where even the great Odin had no right of rule, though Odin and Frigg sent another of their sons, Hermod, to offer ransom and beg Balder's release. My mother, Hel, would not give up Balder's spirit, and it is known but to a very few that Hel played games with Odin to distract him while Loki sought a confession from Balder, told Balder he would be Hel's slave, imprisoned until Ragnarok, unless he admitted of his scheme. Here is where Balder surprised them, as he refused such bargain, chose to remain Hel's prisoner, to spend an age amongst the dead before exposing his own deceit. And that is how I first came to see him, as a prisoner in Hel. He was most curious to me as a child, this beautiful deity. There in his chamber with his dead wife. He looked such a desolate soul, appeared almost as stone. He would stand for days on end without moving, staring down into the bottomless chasms of the nether regions, listening to the songs of the dead and waiting, ever waiting for the end of the gods, for Ragnarok, until its promise of freedom. I questioned Mother. How could one willing to make such a sacrifice to keep his secrets truly be of low character? She laughed and said, not to confuse pride with nobleness, and warned me not to pity him. But I felt this being had suffered his share. Even then, at that young age, I could see that Loki's hatred and jealousy of Odin was at the heart of Balder's fate. So I did come to pity him, and that, my friend, was the beginning of my undoing. For a better lesson lay ahead, and it's that serpent. For a bitter lesson lay ahead, and it is that a serpent is always a serpent no matter the guise. I had no way of knowing then that there would come a day when I would be unable to utter his name, that I would dream of his blood on my hands in 100 times over. Well, let's try this again. I had no way of knowing that there would come a day when I would be unable to utter his name, that I would dream of his blood on my hands 100,000 times over. Krampus started to tell the rest of the story. He glanced at Jesse, realized the music man was asleep. Krampus let out a great sigh, tugged open the sack, peered into its murky depths. Together we shall find Loki's arrow. Together we shall kill Balder, no matter what guise he might wear. Ooh, the rest of that was rough. I noticed that pages like this are a little easier for me to read. Oh gosh, I don't know if you can see. Pages like this are a little easier to see where the lines are broken up. There's a lot of stuff going on, different people talking back and forth. And then pages like this, where everything is just blocks all the way across. I get a lot more lost, it seems, in there. Pages like this one too. So, yeah, something to notice. All right.